Morning, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you made it to today's show, you are in for some breaking revelations, some brand new discoveries. We're going to be going through a couple videos. We are going to present to you something that you have not seen before. Now, it's Friday, so hopefully you guys can relax and listen to the information. I also have to give the disclosure that this channel is not a right-left channel. So even though we are covering lots of stuff regarding Donald Thump, we have to call him that because if you can't continue to say his name on YouTube anymore for some reason, that raises a flag. So we call him Thump, not to make fun of him, but just to basically use coded language. So don't be upset if you feel like we're picking on him, because that's simply not the case. We understand that both sides work together. This is a right-left paradigm reality, and this is how it works. Now, why are we here today? Well, there's another connection between Nikola Tesla and Donald Thump that should not be there. But yet, what I'm going to show you today will demonstrate clearly that there is a connection. And this discovery will seal the deal on the facts that there is so much more to the Thump-Tesla connection than we've been told. So here it is. I'm going to jump right into it. The guy who painted Mar-a-Lago also painted the hotel where Tesla died. Here it is right here. This is the Mar-a-Lago. This is his Wikipedia page from Louis Jambor. And as you can see here, it says that he painted the Mar-a-Lago and the Hotel New Yorker, connecting those two buildings beyond a shadow of a doubt, and probably the reason why Thump purchased the Mar-a-Lago. There's something to this. Now, what else do we have here? Because there's so much more to this. Well, the very place where Donald's uncle collected Tesla's papers was at this Hotel New Yorker. It's called the Wyndham New Yorker. Now, the first connection that we found a couple days ago that linked these two buildings it's actually featured here on the channel, and that was strange enough. Both buildings seem to share lots of mathematics. Now here's the video here that we put up. It's featured on the channel. And they also look very visually similar. Now, a couple people, there's always a few naysayers because they're in the right-left paradigm. They think we're trying to find things on Thump, right? But they don't realize that Thump is a very integral part of these last days prophecies. And and this is why he has become the focus, because there's some technical component to him that has been uncovered. We cover Bo Jiven as well, but he's almost like an empty suit. There's not a lot to cover on him. He's just a placeholder in all this. Okay, he's kind of irrelevant, but he is basically carrying on the same agenda. But here's what we found. Now, I did stretch, as you're going to see here, we're going to quickly review this. I did stretch Thump Tower over the Wyndham New Yorker, but in this case, it was an appropriate reason to stretch something, right? Let's look at this here. I'm just going to quickly go over this. I'm going to turn the volume off because there's music on here that you don't really need to hear. So let's flip through these numbers. So here are the mathematical connections to these two buildings. Both 33,000 square feet. Let's flip quickly through these. One, the conference room of the New Yorker is 33,000 square feet, the same exact size as Thump's penthouse. You also have this 40, what is it? Oh, there's a 33,000 again. And then we also have, let's flip through here, 664-foot height in the Thump Tower, 2 feet short of 666, dovetailing in with the number of suites in the Wyndham New Yorker. So we have that connection as well. 1,083 rooms in the Wyndham New Yorker. And Thumb Tower has a mirror of that, opening in 1983, 38 years ago. So that's a mirror number as well. Like I said, this is just a summary. You can go back and watch this video in full. We have 43 floor count at the Wyndham New Yorker, and we have that opposite of that, 34 lifts or elevators in Thumb Tower. As you can see, all these numbers are either exact numbers of one another or mirrors of one another. This isn't a stretch. 58 floors and 66 floors at Thumb Tower. And when you add those two numbers to the year that the Wyndham New Yorker opened, it becomes the 2 years that Thumb considered the presidency, first in 1988 and then in 1996. So at that point, I was like looking at these two buildings, and I was like, these two buildings look very visually similar. So what I did is I went into this program and I took the Thumb Tower floor plan and I set it up next to the Wyndham New Yorker facade. And this is where I did my little stretch routine. But as you can see in this case, it is appropriate because what you have are 7 levels of the Thumb Tower, which fits onto the 7 levels of the Wyndham New Yorker. And so you have it fitting like a puzzle piece. 7 and 7, 77. So, very strange, isn't it? Very, very strange. Now, I give some commentary on this, but it's basically a repeat of what you just heard. Now, let me make sure we're connected, and then we'll get back in here with you guys. Now, this gets even more bizarre because in addition to finding that these two buildings were very visually similar, we found another connection between the two buildings that shouldn't be there. And that is that they were both painted by the same artist. He did murals throughout. We're going to look at some of those murals. But basically, there are some other things that connect these buildings as well. And I put together this short video for you so you can see that Thumb Tower and the Wyndham sit at exactly 57 degrees away from each other. Here's the map here showing the distance between the two. It's 0.11 miles at 57 degree heading. That's 5G whiz, cornerstone to cornerstone. And there are those numbers again, right? 57 and 58. Now, the other interesting thing is that Thumb Tower forms a pair with the IBM building. They look like arrows, and they both literally point directly to Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, which isn't that far away. So here we go from the Wyndham to Thumb Tower, and as you can see visually, they form these two arrows. Now let's take a closer look because this is pretty crazy. There are the two arrows, and I drew a line through the arrows. Now, many of you have already seen this evidence before, but now we're starting to paint a picture that all these buildings are linked together through the occult and provide a picture of something a little bit more sinister than we've been led to believe. There's the arrows pointing directly to Wardenclyffe Tower. That's the alignment. You can't make it up. Now, there's a lot of other things that probably fall on this line, but the closest landmark is Wardenclyffe Tower. This is interesting because why is Thumb Tower and the IBM building pointing like arrows to Wardenclyffe Tower? It doesn't make any other sense unless you understand that there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye. Look at the alignment there. It's like literally there are two fast forward buttons pointing to Wardenclyffe Tower. Now you can do all this yourself in Google Earth. I'm not making any of this up. I have to say that because people almost can't believe what they're seeing. They're like, how are you finding this? How is this happening? It's because it's supernatural to a certain degree. But there is the connection that I wanted to show you. And now we're going to get into this second, much stronger connection between Thumb and Tesla. And it centers around this muralist named Louis Jambor. Here he is here. And he painted, and you ready for this? He painted this picture of Apollo. Now, many of you are probably about to fall out of your chairs right now because you understand that this very painting, or one very similar to it, exists above the mantle in Thump's Apollo penthouse on the 66th floor. This is brand new breaking information. Latches. This was we're going to get into what the latches is, because this all goes back to a different place where Louis Jambor actually did murals. And here it is right here. Here's another image of it right here. The Latches Theater. This is in a place called Brattleboro. I'm going to break that down as well, because guess where Brattleboro is? It's in Windham County, just like the Windham New Yorker. All of this stuff is connected. So we have this Apollo painting that Jambor created in the Latches Theater complex in Brattleboro, Vermont. And I think there's a video here. Let's pull this up. Here's the video here. This woman talks a little bit about this whole thing. Let's listen and see what this has to say. Let's hope it plays here. This is a Kickstarter. They're trying to raise money to redo this theater. Uh-oh, I don't think it's going to play for us. Well, let's move on.
Hi, my name is Gail Nunziata, and I'm talking to you from Brattleboro, Vermont, one of the best small towns in America.
So here's Brattleboro. That's the Latches Theater. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see this. And this is a theater complex in Windham County, Vermont. This is unbelievable.
Right behind me is the Latches Theater, and it's a beautiful theater, 75 years old. It's been holding down the corner of Main Street and Flat Street in Brattleboro, Vermont since 1938. Brattleboro, Vermont since 1938.
There's that number again, 1938, the opposite of 83, all pointing back to Thump. Now, I don't know how all this fits in together, but look on the ceiling. They've got the zodiac painted on the ceiling. You're going to see Greek mythology murals painted by the very Jambor that we just talked about, the guy who painted Mar-a-Lago. You guys, this is unbelievable.
Very sophisticated. It's got a quirky artsiness to it. We bring in communities from all over. What you see before you is the legendary zodiac ceiling in the Latches. The ceiling has a couple of problems, as you can...
So those are made out of wood, and they're starting to deteriorate, so they're asking for some money to restore this theater. There's the wood there, some of the Greek mythology painted on the walls. Here's some of the folks. Now, I'm being careful about how I cover this because I want this video to be seen far and wide, so you can fill in the blanks in terms of the ramifications of all of this and what this means. Okay, I'm not going to go on a character assassination of the people involved in this video, because what that will do is just get this video taken down, right? So we're just presenting facts. But here you see clear as day, Brattleboro is in Windham County. Windham, New Yorker, Windham County. Unbelievable. Now let's keep going with this, because many of you are curious as to what particular murals that this guy painted, this Jambor character, in the Mar-a-Lago. So I found them. These are the pictures that he painted inside of Mar-a-Lago. Let's zoom in on parts of this. Many people believe that these murals inside Mar-a-Lago are of Gulliver's Travels. Possibly. You see there's some boats in here. So as we kind of zoom, there's people standing on top of rocks. Let's go on to the next painting here, and then I'll show you the ones that he did inside of the New Yorker, and we can compare the two. Here again, Gulliver's Travel. Here's a different shot of it. These there's four. It looks like people on top of a rock here, and let's keep going because there's more. Okay, here's another angle of it, so you can see this. Okay, very elaborate paintings. There's something to this artist. Now I'm going to show you pictures of what's inside, or was inside the New Yorker. Much of this had been painted over. This also looks like scenes possibly from the Gulliver's Travel with the boats and everything. I'm not quite sure. And maybe it's time to take a closer look at Gulliver's Travels, right? But as I said, many of these have been painted over. This, I can't really tell what this is here. Looks like this looks almost like the Caribbean or something, maybe. I don't know. Now, these pictures are creepy. I found some very high resolution images of the people at the Wyndham New Yorker watching, and I guess I think this was a Yuletide festival or something, which is the festival of cutting down trees, tree sacrifice. We all know what that's about. But look at the faces in here. I was looking through these faces, seeing if I could see some of these people, because I truly believe that when these people hop bodies, that they look very similar, or almost they can, the best case scenario is they can hop bodies into a clone of themselves. But they think they hide behind time, right? They hide behind time because time is on their side, is what the devil says. This guy looks really familiar, doesn't he? This looks like somebody we know. Looks almost like that general. Okay, so all these people that were in the Wyndham New Yorker during the time that Tesla was there. Let's zoom a couple of these other corners up so you guys can maybe get an idea of this, because you guys are really good at spotting stuff. Here's another group of people here down in this corner. Look at this guy's eyes right here. Whoa. So let's go down to this corner now. All right. See what's going on down here, just to cover all these people. So this beneath the mural of Jambor. So I'm not quite sure what he painted there in Mar-a-Lago and the Wyndham New Yorker, but it definitely connects the two. Now, Jambor did other works, as we said, at Brattleboro, Vermont, in this theater called the Latches Theater and Hotel. And this was basically an Art Deco building complex in Windham County, Vermont. And this is where the mural of Apollo is housed, in this Latches Hotel and Theater complex. And let's see, I think I have some other images of the theater pulled up in here. See if I did that. Now, there's actually a guy named Doug Thump, as you can see right here, who is an artist in Brattleboro. You have to wonder if he's somehow connected to the Thump family. I know that everyone named Thump isn't the same, but you have to wonder, right? With all these other connections that we found, here's Doug Thump, and he's a prominent artist in Brattleboro and has his art pieces everywhere. Here are some of the images that are in the Latches Theater. As you can see, here's of Greek mythology, 1938. There's that number again. Look at the twin leopards here. Wow. Are those wreaths around their head? It's hard to tell. But this is Jambor right here. Now we're going to look at pretty much like a documentary specific to this town, Brattleboro, and this particular theater. I found an 1 hour and 45-minute documentary. That's what we're going to look at next. But who is this right here? I mean, this guy reminds me of Pan almost. I know it's probably not Pan, but kind of reminds me of him. Here's the image here. Okay, we already covered Thump. And what else? All right, so let's keep going with this. Now, here's what's fascinating about the clips from a video that we're going to watch next. You're actually going to hear them say they're going to solve the mystery of the serpent in the chest, the arrow in the chest. And it's basically the arrow through the heart. It's basically love possession, they call, as you're going to hear them say next. It's called love possession. Cupid's love possession. It almost sounds like some kind of spiritual possession, but you're going to hear him at the end of this video break it down, and it provides the last piece of the puzzle that we were looking for as to what all this is about. Somehow they're going to open up our, the ability for them to enter into the human host. So I want you to watch and listen. Now we're going to play the first 3 minutes of this video, and this is what's going to put everything in perspective that I just explained to you right now. And then we're going to jump through the video, and I'm going to show you the rest of it. And let me make sure you guys are with me, and we'll keep going with this. Wow, right? A lot of information. Hopefully it's coming through. And, the people that were saying that they didn't believe that there were connections between the buildings, this seals the deal, okay? There is no more on the fence about this. I knew it because the Holy Spirit told me that it was the case, and all I had to do was keep digging, and here it is. So let's keep going with this. Let's get into this video. Now listen to this guy. This is chilling.
I'm John Potter, Executive Director of the Latches, and I'm very, very happy to welcome you to the wonderful Latches Theater. So glad we're all here. Gordon Hayward backstage. It feels like all our friends and family are right here. It's great to see you all. As I was thinking about the right words to greet you with, I turned to a favorite person of mine and a close friend of the Latches, Ken Burns, who once remarked, "I've learned time and again that you can discover the extraordinary within the ordinary." And that's what I love about history.
What? Discover the extraordinary in the ordinary. Now keep listening.
And what I love about coming to work at the Latches every day. Life here is rife with the possibility of discovering the extraordinary.
Now, if you're just tuning in, this is a documentary called Hidden in Plain Sight. It released in December of 2015, and it's all about, let's play that again. Sorry, guys.
The Latches itself is something.
It's all about this artist named Jambor, who actually painted the Mar-a-Lago and the place where Tesla died on the 33rd floor, the Wyndham New Yorker Hotel.
Extraordinary.
He's speaking from Wyndham County right now as you sit here and watch it.
It just happens to be found in the last place you'd look for it, the heart of a small Vermont town. At least once a week, I show this theater to someone who has never seen it, and the reaction is always the same. Their eyes open wide, their jaws drop, and invariably they will say, "I had no idea this was here." They just discovered our extraordinary. Even for those of us who are familiar with the Latches, it is never old hat. Cook those fires some more and do a little more digging, a little more of what Ken Burns calls the emotional archaeology of history. But I also think tonight is about the inverse of Burns's comment. We are here tonight to celebrate the ordinary within the extraordinary. As extraordinary as the Latches is, and as uniquely gifted as the people in our story are, the Latches is also the happy creation of some people who are extraordinary for their basic humanity. They are ordinary like us. They are husbands and wives, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, families and strangers who quickly become like family, and love, above all, love. It has been a labor of love to see this event take shape and to find the words to talk about it. It has always been my hope that this event not only shines light on the glories that abound in this extraordinary place, but that it might inspire us to find what's hidden in plain sight all around us. A dear friend of mine in town sent me an email expressing, along with her genuine regret at being out of town tonight, exactly what I've been hoping for. She wrote,
So there you're hearing it. There's an above and below, inverses, hidden meanings, and everything else. Let's keep listening.
"I have long wished for exactly this kind of in-depth focus on these local works, especially to incorporate some explaining of the different aspects, Greek mythology, artistic value of the works, Latches family connection, etc. So much hidden in plain sight." Exactly. In fact, I think that is the key overall to understanding what the town of Brattleboro is. So much hidden in plain sight. So let's find out together. To begin this revealing evening, in addition to asking you to please silence your cell phones, I am proud to introduce Gordon Hayward, President of the Latches Arts Board.
Look at the size of this guy. He is so tall. Watch. Wow. So there's obviously something going on here. They're making a very big deal out of this theater and these artists. Now we're going to skip forward to 26 minutes, I believe, and you're going to hear them talk about Apollo's chocolates, or you're going to see Apollo's chocolates in this old image. Now, this is the granddaughter of Latches, who established this community.
It was October 6th Saturday, so I did a little research and found all the October 6th Saturdays that existed and pretty much narrowed it down to 1923. And what it says there, meat. That's the sign over here to the right of the door.
So this is the original store. These were like fruit carts that her grandfather owned in this town of Brattleboro. And there you see Apollo chocolates right there, front and center. They wanted you to see this. Let's keep going. We're going to skip forward to 27 minutes and 40 seconds. And you're going to hear her say the number 64 times. Direct reference to the 600 and the 64 and 46 that we had just identified earlier in this show. Watch.
Parking lot, and look up over the back of the theater. You can see those windows and a little light structure up there. So that's still visible from the co-op side. Oh, one thing I wanted to tell you about. I had some major achievements while I worked here when I was young. I could standing. I could toss, I counted 64 times popcorn that I would catch in my mouth. That was my record.
So the 64 times popcorn. Now we're going to jump to 39 minutes, and you can see that this guy did lots of paintings of Jesus, but he did the false image of Jesus. Now, understand that I'm not here to judge anyone who prays to the false image of Jesus that we were given. Okay, that's not the point. It's not like Jesus didn't hear your prayers, but understand that the enemy would love nothing better than to have everybody praying to a form of Jesus that isn't the true image of Jesus, right? I don't think Jesus really cares, but the enemy is always chipping away, and it becomes part of the overall mind control. When you have misinformation in all these different areas about the Son of God, then that does something to the human psyche. It pretty much breaks down your true opinion of who exactly Jesus was. So there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, look at Christianity today. What do? Well, Christians are the first ones to send people off to fight wars. Is that what Jesus taught? No. So it's basically the opposite of what Jesus taught. He taught nonviolence. And he's the one that when he comes back, he's going to wipe the slate clean. It's not our job to do that. And nor did he teach his disciples to do that. So let's keep watching here, because at 38 minutes, you're going to see some of the paintings that this man did, as she's now talking about Jambor, the artist. She switches gears here.
To that here. He not only painted religious murals, but also religious paintings. His canvases bearing the titles Jesus of Nazareth, the Lord's Supper, the Nativity, Mother and Child.
Now, most of these paintings that he did of Jesus and the Last Supper and all this are in Lutheran materials.
Have been extensively reproduced and widely distributed by religious organizations. The Lutheran Church distributed a great deal of his religious art worldwide, particularly Jesus of Nazareth. Painting.
So there, of course, is the Caucasian version of Jesus. Right?
Why Do You Kill Each Other was the focal point of the Protestant pavilion in the Jambor's painting Why Do You Kill Each Other was the focal point of the Protestant pavilion in the 1934 World's Fair. It's a little bit darker.
Now that 1934 World's Fair was the Chicago World's Fair. Let's keep watching.
Since we are getting to know Louis Jambor tonight, it is important to appreciate him as a man of deep faith. He was very religious. He painted parts of his Christian religion that meant a lot to him, said Catherine Alexander. Finally, he was also a portrait artist of considerable talent. Commissions for portraits included Father.
Now he mentions Cabrini Green in here. He mentions Cabrini. Let me go back to that. I hope I didn't miss that. But we know about Cabrini Green. We've been talking all about it. Candyman.
Jambor's painting Why Do You Kill Each Other was the focal point of the Protestant pavilion in the 1934 World's Fair. A little bit darker. Since we are getting to know Louis Jambor tonight, it is important to appreciate him as a man of deep faith. He was very religious. He painted parts of his Christian religion that meant a lot to him. Commissions for portraits included Father Francis Duffy of New York, Lord Rothmere in London, the canonized Saint Mother Cabrini, and of course Demetrius
There you go, the canonized Saint Mother Cabrini, and we've covered that in depth. It's literally happening right now as we speak. Now, he also uses beeswax. Remember, the head of Mother Cabrini is made out of beeswax. And there's all kinds of references about beeswax and this paper boat that she folded. She would coat it with beeswax, but inevitably the paper boat would sink.
Latches, which he painted from a photograph. Here we have him again. Catherine said, the Latches family had heard he was a portrait painter. I think they liked the portrait.
So for some of you that may be confused at this point, Jambor is the artist. Latches is the entrepreneur who came to Brattleboro, and this is a painting of him by Jambor.
Enough that they offered him the mural work. Jambor's work on the Latches murals reflected his thoughtfulness as an artist and his mastery of technique. The reformer wrote, Mr. Jambor explained that the murals were not only derived from the mythology of Greece, but the very way they were painted on the wall was Greek.
So now herein lies the problem, right? Religious man painting images of the Bible, but on one hand, and then on the other hand, painting images of Greek mythology, which the two do not jive, right? Obviously, you cannot serve two masters. Let's keep watching.
In contrast to the Roman fresco method, Mr. Jambor has remained faithful to the Greek art by using a combination of beeswax that fixes the colors and at the same time gives them the appearance of being watercolors.
So there's the Mother Cabrini beeswax reference. Then we skip forward to 44 minutes, and here you're going to hear a ping pong reference. Unbelievable. 44 minutes and 40 seconds. Let's see, here it is right here. Okay.
Said Catherine. Alexander writes, since I was an only child, Jambor's son Louis was like a brother to me. He taught me ping pong and gave me so many of the books he liked. He loved dogs, large ones. He owned many and even brushed their teeth.
Now, Jambor here's another connection. Jambor the painter was from Hungary. And this is where Tesla worked at the Budapest Telephone Exchange Telegraph Company. So, another connection between the New Yorker, Tesla, and this Jambor character. The two probably knew each other, is my guess.
Louis Jambor Jr. died about 10 years ago. Catherine's mother, née Violet Jambor, graduated with a degree in interior design in 1933 from Columbia University. She met her husband at the Riverside Church Young People's Group. He was here as a physicist and had arrived recently, coincidentally enough, from Hungary on a work scholarship.
So there's physicists, this thing is loaded. You got Catherine Alexander, which is Jambor's granddaughter. You're going to hear her speak here pretty soon here. Her father was a physicist whose invention reads like fallen angel technology. Watch.
It turned out that they had lived only a few blocks from each other in Budapest before Catherine's family left when Catherine was 10, but they never knew each other then. They were married for 65 years. Catherine Alexander was born in New York City on November 19th, 1934. Catherine's father was a physicist whose career reads like the history of important inventions of the 20th century. By the time he died, her father held more than 200 patents. He was involved in the development of the atomic bomb. He was also instrumental in the invention of color television, battery-powered portable radios, the remote control, and a non-deteriorating fabric used for the American flag planted on the moon.
What? Now, obviously, this is a bogus invention, right? For those of us who know that there's really no solid proof that we were ever here. That's a bogus patent, bogus invention. And so obviously these people are on the inside. They are the elite, in my opinion.
For which he was the lead engineer. So we have our zodiac ceiling up there, but there's a Jambor connection all the way to the moon. Catherine's life has been pretty exciting too. As a student, she worked as assistant librarian at a library at Princeton University, and among the people she met there was Albert Einstein.
She met Einstein. I mean, how much more in the know do you have to be? Physicist family, physicist roots. Now we're going to skip forward here to 53 minutes, and who is this? This lady is actually the granddaughter of, I believe, Jambor. Let's watch.
With the versatility. This is a group of pictures of women around some musical instrument. It could be a harp or a violin, a piano. Prints were made of these, which Macy and Gimbel sold at the time. The series of mother and children, and then cards were made from Little Women. holiday cards, Easter cards, which were sold in the 1930, 40, 50, 60.
Now understand the holiday cards, Easter cards, all this is part of the false worship matrix. And it's hard for some people to believe, but basically an entire system of false worship has been created and attached to the Christian religion in America and around the world in its infancy. There were no cards, back when Jesus was around. That's not what he wanted us to do. There was no Christmas worship. All of this, these people helped to prop up through their art, prop up the false worship. Let's keep watching.
And the reason he did cards and prints is that my grandmother cried every time he sold a picture.
And think about it. It brings money into the temple. It allows these people to become rich off of these things that do not please God. Okay. These things do not please God. Now, it's not bad to buy a card for somebody. I'm talking about the whole industry of it all and it being connected to worship of God. It's like bringing money into the temple, more things to spend money on, and attaching money to a day that isn't even his real birthday. Let's keep watching.
And then my mother was the same way. She cloistered a lot of them and wouldn't sell them. Now I have them. And I have a son and a daughter and 3 great.
Now, of course, I'm watching this thing with eagle eyes, right? Because I'm looking for any clues surrounding this woman that might give us some clues as to what could be going on. Now, what you're going to see next are the Russian dolls that we've been talking about backwards and forward, the nested reality.
Grandchildren. So I don't know what will happen to them, but I don't particularly want to sell them either. Perhaps you know the picture that's on the wall here on my right.
There it is right there. The Russian doll reality. Now, I know a lot of people have Russian dolls, but there's a reason why they're underneath here. And you're going to listen to how she says dead bodies.
It's Christ walking through dead bodies saying, the picture that's on the wall here on my right is Christ walking through dead bodies saying, why do you kill each other? It was the
So that just sounds a little creepy, huh? Like nonchalantly, just Christ walking through dead bodies. Now we're going to fast forward to 54 minutes and 27 seconds, and you're going to see devil masks. Oh, this is Cain and Abel right here. Cain and Abel painting. Then you're going to see these devil masks on the wall.
And to the left are the
I think these might be like
players.
Asian masks, maybe.
And that is.
But I wouldn't want to be sleeping next to this. Some kind of a thing on top of here. I don't know what this is. Like a letter. Is that a Hebrew letter? This one down here. Same thing. Another letter, different letter on top of it. I don't know what that's about, but it's really, really, really creepy. Keep watching.
At the table.
Then apparently she has a fascination with penguins, another occult symbol.
My grandfather was an early women's literary in the wars. At the window over here is the reading lesson.
Here you see the penguins behind here. Fascination with penguins. So all of the occult symbols that we've discovered in the past, penguins, ping pong, all these things that have double meanings. And now we're going to skip forward to, let me make sure you guys are with me first. All right, good, very good. Are we still connected? Uh-oh. Okay, seems as though we are. It felt like we were buffering. Okay, let's keep going with this. And then I'll come back in the chat. We're almost done with the presentation today. Let's keep watching. So we skip forward to 1 hour and 1 minute. And
a shared appreciation of this space.
This is the guy that goes into detail about Jambor's particular murals. He explains them. So I want you to listen carefully.
Now, again, on Monday, as I first came into this space, and John said, well, we never really had anybody who interpreted the cycle of murals for us. And people would come in and periodically look up and they would make up stories about these images, which again, I think is entirely appropriate in that it's very easy to see that there's tremendous meaning here, but we might not necessarily have an academic knowledge of what these communicate. I often argue with my wife about the difference between things that are factual and things that are true. And I would just seek to emphasize that I think every story that's ever been told about these murals is a true story. It may not be the one that Jambor.
So they're saying basically that these murals are actually telling a story that they are just now uncovering. This is crazy, you guys. After all these years, on the eve of the presidency of Apollo himself, which is Thump This was in 2015. So this was obviously some kind of like foreshadowing of the presidency to come. But the way this all has any meaning and connects together is when he starts talking about Cupid's arrow. And that's where we get the definition of exactly what we just went through. This serpent in the chest, this arrow through the heart, the possession. The arrow is the Pokemon sticker. That's what it is. Let's keep watching.
Intended. It may not necessarily be the one that an archaeologist or a classicist will tell you it means, but there's real truth in every retelling of these stories. So we're going to begin this evening with our image over here, this amazing image, and this is my personal favorite.
Okay, so here we go. There's Apollo right there above the man. It almost looks like the exact picture above the mantle in Thump's penthouse. Let's keep watching and listening.
Of these particular scenes. We see here an image of Apollo, who is up above the arbor, and below the arbor we have these images of a girl carrying two curious objects. She holds a lamp and she holds a knife, and then she looks out at this young man who's sleeping on a bed. Again, I'm immediately intrigued by what kind of stories this might inspire.
Above the arbor. Now this could double. The arbor could be a double meaning. Arbor vitae is actually the name of the tree of life. That's what arbor vitae means in Latin. It's the tree of life, and it actually describes the cerebellum of the brain, the back of your brain, where we saw the image of Christ in the nervous system at the back of the brain when we looked at cross sections of that. The arbor vitae, and it actually looks like a tree when you cross section it. The tree of life. So this could have double meaning. That Apollo wants to dominate the arbor vitae, the back of the brain where Christ is. He wants to rise above the arbor vitae, the cerebellum of the brain, and take that space where Christ had once occupied that area. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about the image of Christ in the back of your brain, I have videos in the Body Code documentary that explains that fully. But it is fascinating how Christ is actually written visually onto our flesh. You can see the image of him hanging on the cross in the back of the brain. So Apollo wants to rise above that. He wants to elevate himself above the Most High in the clouds. And that's the true story behind this image here. Let's keep watching.
But also certainly impressed by the visual balance that this particular image has with the other to the other side that we'll come to in just a moment. From an academic's perspective and from a classicist perspective, this is of course an image of the story of Cupid and Psyche. The story of Cupid and Psyche survives to us today in a form told by the Roman author Apuleius.
So he's going to now talk about Cupid and Psyche, and this is where he gets into Cupid shooting arrows at Psyche to make her fall in love with a monster. But Cupid ends up falling in love with Psyche instead, and because he's actually grazed by his own arrow. And then Apollo tells the king that his daughter will fall in love with a dragon, and the king offers to sacrifice his daughter to the dragon. But she doesn't because she sees that the monster is dark, or she doesn't see the monster in the dark. I'm sorry. So what you're going to hear this guy right here say is that the arrow is a mechanism of possession. If you're grazed by the arrow, you could then become possessed. This is unbelievable, you guys. This is breakthrough bombshell information, because now we've gotten into what this piercing of the arrow really means. Okay? Possessed with the dragon of love. Possession by the arrow, the serpent in the chest. Listen.
Apuleius is just merely a very, very late and surviving version of this particular story, but images of this story are known to us archaeologically at least as early as the 4th century BCE. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with the story, let me just tell it in brief. I'm not normally prone to telling stories briefly, so I'll try to keep myself in check. Psyche is the daughter of a king. She has 2 sisters, and all 3 of the sisters of the king are remarkable for their beauty. In fact, the people of the city, and unfortunately, in Apuleius, the Psyche, that they begin to commit an act of hubris. They begin to imagine that perhaps these girls are more beautiful than Aphrodite, and the Roman and Greek versions are there, to use his arrows, and you can see his arrows are over, well, here we are. Arrows are right over here. To use his arrows.
Apollo's arrows. And now you know why Thump is sitting at the tip of the spear in both Thump Tower at the bottom of the arbor, the trees, right? On Thump Tower, you can see the pointed down arrow, and also that mimics his military photo where he's standing at the tip of the spear, and in behind him it says portals. It's all being revealed right now. Let's keep watching.
Arrows, and shoot an arrow at Psyche and compel her to fall in love with a horrible monster. This will.
Hold on, let me do this justice. Okay. We gotta, because some of you are new to the channel, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So here's the tip of the arrow of Trump right here. Let's see if we can find it. That's him here, but they got to show the whole picture here. Look at how they try to hide this. Unbelievable. Should be able to type in. Let's put in Academy. Academy. That should bring it up here. Wow, unbelievable. This used to be, oh, there it is. Used to be able to pull this right up. So here's Thump at the tip of the arrow, the tip of the spear. And of course, and it says back here, through these portals. Portal is code for possession. It's getting into the soul, the way in. So he was always going to be part of it. Warp speed, the invention of the very first nationally mandated Pokemon sticker. And there he is right there at the tip of the sparrow, the tallest one. And that's why in the film Donnie Darko, he says time travel is like a spear coming out of the chest, and then water comes out of the chest, because that water is the conduit through which all this happens, and time travel is just code word for spirit possession, because that's how they jump down through time, right? And this is why you heard Baldwin making fun of Thump, saying his favorite movie was Donnie Darko. Remember that? As he was dressed as Thump, I think, or a chicken or something like that. But there it is right here. Now you're understanding all of this. Now let's keep going. Now, none of what I'm showing you today came from me. This is the Holy Spirit inspiration, revealing all things that were hidden. So any glory that you want to, it all goes to the Most High, not to me. I'm just a man trying to do the will of God so that all that can be revealed for everybody. Okay, that's all. Now, let's keep going. Listen to the story of Cupid.
Will then be Aphrodite's punishment. Cupid agrees to do this and picks up his arrows, but in so doing, he scrapes himself with one of his arrows and immediately falls in love with the next thing that he sees. And his arrows, but in so doing, he scrapes himself with one of his arrows.
Now, well, let's look at the faces here, because you got to zoom in on the faces when they say stuff like this. This is metaphor. Scraping of the arrows is the Pokemon sticker. That's what this is all about, you guys. And it's not to say that the first one you get will cause this, but over the course of a series of the next several years, as they keep giving you more booster seats, then this is what the end goal is. It's going to cause a change that allows this to be happen, the spirit possession to happen more easily.
And Cupid agrees to do this and picks up his arrows, but in so doing, he scrapes himself with one of his arrows and immediately falls in love. Cupid agrees to do this and picks up his arrows, but in so doing, he scrapes himself with one of his arrows and immediately falls in love with the next thing that he sees, and that is Psyche herself.
Did you see that?
So now Cupid and Psyche are, well, rather that's the first element of the story that begins to bind these two characters together. Unfortunately, Psyche's father begins to worry that the people of his city are venerating his daughters to the detriment of Aphrodite. And so as a result, he then goes to Delphi. And Delphi is the sanctuary of the god Apollo. And we see Apollo above the scene.
Whoa.
The king learns from Apollo that Psyche is fated to fall in love with a dragon, with a monster. And at this point, the king then agrees to sacrifice his daughter to this particular monster. At which point Zephyrus, the west wind, lifts Psyche up and takes her to a palace. Now Psyche is then entertained by invisible music of lutes, and she dines by herself at a perfect and wonderful banquet, never seeing her future husband. Finally, at the end of her wedding night, the lights are extinguished, and she's incapable then of seeing what her husband looks like. But she submits to him, and they go off to their marriage chamber together. But she never sees this. Now, over time, she becomes she's lonely. She is lonely, and over time, her wish is granted, and Cupid agrees to allow her sisters to come visit her. So Psyche's sisters then begin to say, well, your husband is a horrible monster, and so that he'll never reveal himself to her. But Psyche, knowing that he now is asleep, takes her lamp. She takes the lamp that we see here in the scene, And she approaches with a knife, prepared to kill her husband, thinking that he's a monster. But when she sees him revealed, she sees the beautiful Eros, the beautiful Cupid. But as she does, she's startled by his incredible beauty, and then she herself bumps into the arrows that he has left beside the bed.
2 grazes, 2 shots, 2 times that the arrow grazes. Unbelievable.
And she now is scraped by the same arrow, and she becomes possessed with the dragon of love at this point.
The dragon of love.
Cupid, same arrow, and she becomes possessed with the dragon of love.
So this is what it's all about. This is what it's always been about. The serpent in love with the woman, wanting to possess the woman, the seed of the woman. It's always what it's always been about since the beginning of the book of Genesis. He wages war on the woman, and she bruises him in the head. He bruises her in the heel. And this is what it's always been about.
At this point. Cupid then, so she backs away, and oil from her lamp spills onto Cupid, burning him and waking him up. He then realizes that his wife has been faithless to her promise to never look upon him in the lights. Image and take. Now
we switch over, and you're going to hear the story of Leto, the mother of Artemis and Apollo, which is what Thump named the space program. He named it Artemis. Wow. Listen.
Takes this image and incorporates it into this mural. Now this, as you can see over here, wrapped up over here, is Latona. Now Latona is the Roman name for a Greek divinity, Leto. And Leto is the mother of the divine twins Artemis and Apollo. We see again Apollo over here on this fresco, and over here we see Apollo in his infancy.
So there's 2 pictures of Apollo in the theater. There's always 2. It's Gemini, it's the double, it's Janus, the 2-headed god.
Apollo, and the reason why this is so essential to understanding Jambour's overarching motivation in the construction of these murals, Apollo is a divinity associated with a number of things.
The sun.
He is a divinity associated with the sun. He's a divinity associated with archery. But most importantly for our purposes, he's a divinity associated with song, with music, and with performance.
Song, music, and performance. Does all this sound familiar? Now, they're going to talk about Bacchus, the god of wine. Bacchus is Dionysus, and he's the god of theater and performance as well. Listen.
Of the art historical.
Tony's fantastic and very accurate comments that another god who is very strongly related to performance is Bacchus, and who is not only the god of wine, but the god of theater, one of the gods of theaters and performance. And Bacchus is illustrated in the mural towards the back of the theater, and I'm not familiar with the slide, so I will need your help with that, please. Thank you. And Bacchus is actually the figure to the left-hand side with.
What? So here's Bacchus, and there you see the serpents at the foot of the eagle on the facade of this. And Bacchus and Dionysus are syncretized as one god. Dionysus is basically the god whose birthday falls on December 25th. Sol Invictus, Apollo, they're all the same. Let's keep going. 115.
Song, theater, specifically theater, both from a historical and also from a mythological perspective, has its origins in the strange and the chaotic rituals of the rural space. Theatrical performance arises out of not terribly well understood, but very ultimately rather disturbing rituals associated with the god Dionysus.
What? So theater originates out of the disturbing Dionysus. Wow.
So our image of Bacchus or Dionysus here in Jambour's scene is one which is informed by Roman models. And no, I'm an Etruscan archaeologist, so I'll just speak about this very, very briefly. The image of a young Bacchus or a young god of wine is actually an image that the Romans adopt not from the Greeks, but rather from the Etruscans. Bacchus and Dionysus are very frequently considered to be equivalent divinities, but it's important to recognize that Bacchus actually, again, has its origins in an Italic idea about divinities of wine as opposed to the earlier Greek ones.
So that's just code for they're the same god. You're going to hear him talk about a mask on a post. Masks. And this is an integral part of the whole theater scene. It's all about masks. Do you see now why we're all wearing masks?
I'm quite confident Jambor didn't care. Ultimately, his interest here is in the representation of a scene of Dionysus. And again, the archaic Greeks, the Greeks of the 7th and 6th centuries BCE, conceived of Dionysus as a bearded man, as you can see up over here. And very often, Dionysus is represented as nothing more than a mask, which is placed on a post, and then the post is then dressed in, usually with clothing or vegetation, as you can see here on this vessel, which was produced in the late 6th century BC.
Mask on a post. Wow. That's what they actually look at us as. A mask with a postal address. That's what we are. That's all they care about. You're muzzled, and we can send you bills in the mail and find out exactly where you are. We know your location at all times.
BCE. So if we can pause for a moment and just consider the idea of masks, especially at this time of year. I mean, Halloween is upon us. And so it's very easy to
Wow. Masks this time of year, Halloween. Keep watching.
Appreciate how the moment of revelation, such as that of the revelation of Ariadne or the revelation of Psyche, is also a moment of transformation. And the mask of Dionysus.
A moment of transformation is what the masks are for. A moment of transformation. Opening of the doorways.
Just like the theater of Dionysus that you see here in this image in Athens. And Athens permeates this space in ways I'll get to in just a moment. These are both the space of the theater and the mask of Dionysus are instruments of tremendous power. The mask and the theater possess the power to transform the wearer and the audience within the theater to open doorways into imagined spaces and identities beyond our own limited reality. The theater is of tremendous power. The mask and the theater possess the power to transform the wearer and the audience within the theater to open doorways into imagined spaces and identities beyond our own limited realities.
Beyond our own limited realities. And then again, this woman, she's probably in the know. As he's saying that, she's kind of like smiling and, you know, she knows what's going on, I think. Let's keep watching here because we're going to get into, they're going to talk about alchemy and bringing the past into the future, which is exactly what they're doing with this ritual dinner that they're all attending and talking about. Alchemy, bringing the past into the future. Watch.
It is increasingly so rare for places like this one, places where the past is so perfectly preserved and presented, to survive in a world that is dictated and distracted by the Walmarts and Netflixes that inflict upon us all. But maybe because it is so rare, we can appreciate how a place like the Latches Theater performs a remarkable act of alchemy, taking the past and the present to guide us into our future, but only if we appreciate its legacy, the legacy that we've inherited, and accept the responsibility that it bestows upon us.
Wow, that was a word sandwich, but I think you all understand what that means. Now, let's get into the final aspects of this video because you're going to hear him talk about the sculptor who did these sculptures. This is a different artist. His name's Caproni. And then a new guy comes and presents, and he talks about this artist and these sculptures and how he had to repair these sculptures that were in disrepair. And I want you to just listen in your own, with your own ears, to what he says next.
Me as a younger man, I'm trying to figure out how the hell you hold a mug like a pouring device. I think we might call it a hydria. I'm not sure. Pouring device. I think we might call it a hydria. I'm not sure. In and pour into
a hydria. Wow. Now, this is heavy, isn't it? Now, let's get into this final part about this. And we're going to close the show with this today. Because I discovered another aspect about the New Yorker, the Wyndham New Yorker Hotel, that I was previously unaware of. And that was that there was this current war going on between Edison and Tesla. Now, I knew about the current war. What I didn't know is that each of these men had their own hotel. Now, this is huge, so pay attention. One of the hotels was called the Edison. Here it is right here. And it was AC current versus DC current. Tesla versus Edison. And they each had their own hotel. Tesla's was at the Wyndham New Yorker, and Edison's was at the Edison. Let's read this article as we close the show, and I'm going to make sure you guys are with me, and then we're going to read this article. Now this blew me away because this provides even more pieces to the puzzle. All right, let's read this here. The Edison and the New Yorker, where Batman met the Godfather and Muhammad Ali. The story between two legendary New York skyscrapers built for two iconic hotels in modern Art Deco style and where Gotham's heartbeat still echoes. There's the New Yorker there. Let's make this bigger so you guys can see this. And God said, "Let there be light." Oh my gosh, talk about blasphemy. And there was light. However, it was neon, and it was not God, but Thomas Edison, who switched on the lights, illuminating one of the most distinctive Art Deco buildings in New York, the I can never say that word, the Edison Hotel. Now look at this. In New York City, Art Deco flourished in the roaring 20s. A unique combination of an exploding population, a booming economy, and cheap credit, together with the development of the elevator, steel frame buildings, lax zoning regulations, created the most incredible transformation the city had ever seen. Majestic buildings, built only 10 or 20 years earlier in the German Revival style, such as the original Waldorf Astoria, were suddenly considered old, as well as other buildings. So let's get down into this. The iconic Art Deco buildings we admire today, suddenly filled the New York City. Okay, so the Empire State was one of them, the Chrysler, General Electric building. There's the Hotel Edison. The architect Le Corbusier, we covered him as well in a video, summed it up in one sentence. In reality, the city is hardly more than 20 years old. That is the city which I'm talking about, the city which is vertical in the scale of the new times. Here's the rooftop terrace of the Edison Hotel in this picture. Let's get down into this part where they talk about the rivalry between Tesla. Thomas Edison invented the movies. It is therefore only natural for the Edison Hotel to be featured in one of the most famous of all, The Godfather. When the hotel hallway leading to the lobby appeared in the very dramatic scene of the movie right before Luca Brasi's execution. Then from The Godfather to The God of Our Fathers, the play written by David Shane, a fictional character of Woody Allen movie, Bullets Over Broadway, where scenes were filmed in the penthouse of the Edison Hotel. So, all these Godfather references, and now you know the secret behind the Dawn, right? It's all connected, you guys. Batman. It says, and even if Batman wasn't in this case the right bird, how can we forget the scene from Michael Keaton in the Birdman, filmed in the famous Rum House Bar? There's more images. Another mural inside the Edison Hotel. A real New Yorker can achieve anything by simply daring to think and act bigger. The Edison Hotel had inventor Thomas Edison to thank for its visibility, but when it comes to electricity, there's AC and there's DC. So the New Yorker Hotel got itself nothing less than genius and rival inventor Nikola Tesla, inventor of AC power. So you see the two hotels are linked. So we might take a deeper look at the Edison and the New Yorker and see if there are links between those hotels to see how they fit together. How far are they away from each other? At what angle? How many rooms does the Edison Hotel have? We're going to break that down in future shows. But it says here, in fact, Nikola Tesla lived in the New Yorker in room 237. Remember all the numbers we've looked at? Room 237? Well, that's scrambled on the 33rd floor in his room number. He actually had two rooms, 3327 and 3328. Possession, mind control, 5G whiz. Remember, room 237 was about possession. The room was possessed. The serpent in the chest, the green room. Wow. And it says here that Tesla was there. Despite the hotel using DC power invented by Edison, he was there for the last 10 years of his life until his death in 1943. Now, I think there is a deeper story to this, because even though the the New Yorker Hotel was DC power, there was probably some experiments going on there, and Tesla knew all about it, and that's why he moved there. He was doing something there. You don't just move into a building that is a self-contained power plant if you're an electrical engineer and you're not working on anything. This doesn't make any sense at all. It says the massive New York hotel was certainly larger than any other hotel ever built until then in New York, pretty much anywhere else in the world. With 43 stories and 2,500 rooms, we went over all the numerical specs of this building and how it related to Thump Tower. But I wanted you to see that there was a connection between even Edison and his hotel and Tesla and his hotel. Now, I think I have some pictures of the inside of the hotel, the Wyndham New Yorker, and the self-contained power plant right here. Here it is. This is the power plant. Down here is a generator. Okay, steam engine. And this whole thing was full of copper wiring and lit up like a Christmas tree. Every single one of the rooms had a radio in it. This is from Popular Science Monthly, 1930, April 1930. And they were talking about this wonder of the world, as it was called. See if there's any other images in here you guys can see. Crazy. Manhattan, largest and tallest hotel. Whoa. We'll do a separate show digging into the Wyndham New Yorker, because many of you asked me to redo that. I just wanted to show you a quick overview of that. All right. Wow. That was a word sandwich, wasn't it? Hopefully I hit all the points. Let's go into the chat. Let this catch up. I'll make sure you guys are okay. Pick you guys up off the floor, because I know this is heavy information, a lot of confirmations. Now, there's been a concerted effort by some, and I pretty much have figured out that they're probably just naysayers or provocateurs to get me to drop this whole connection between Thump and Tesla. Okay, they don't want this kind of information coming out. So when you see that, don't buy into the nonsense that I'm picking on Thump. Okay, don't buy into that. People telling me, why are you still covering him? Because we follow the truth. I listen to the Holy Spirit, not what other people tell me to do. So, had we not stayed on the case, we wouldn't have found what I just presented to you, would we have? We know we would not, because we would not have seen that. Now, let's go into the chat here. So, what do you guys think of all this? Is there anything I missed? Is there any other information that you guys would like to add to this? Yes, we have the New Yorker magazine. I think that was actually named after the Wyndham New Yorker, actually. Wow. AC current might mean Antichrist. Wow, that's interesting. Now, I'm not in the business of naming who I believe the Antichrist is. I know many people have strong beliefs. Some believe it's Obama. Some believe it's Thump. I believe it's the spirit behind all of these people, because they're all the same and they all seem to be possessed by the same demon. That's my opinion. Apollyon. Goatstown. Gotham means Goatstown. Thank you for that. It's great additional information. It's great information. Yes, I believe there's some kind of time travel element to this, Starling 2222. Now, again, I don't believe it's that they can go back in time like they want to depict. I believe that they can jump through time by possessing new bodies in new generations. That's how they do it. And to them, that's like time travel. As far as we can tell. I don't know that for a fact, but you can also look at it this way. These fallen angels, they come from a different realm, a realm of timelessness, and they can jump into the timeline, right? And when the angels came down and interacted with humanity, they were jumping into timelines. They are infinite beings like we will be one day, but they're jumping into a finite timeline. So imagine that some of these angels who were once God's holy angels. They knew the timeline. They knew of possible future events. So then when they jump into our timeline, they can share some of the future events with their evil people when they fall from heaven. So that's a form of time travel, okay? Kinda. From our perspective. Because obviously when they were in heaven, God might have been sharing information with them about the end times events. Think about it this way. God has revealed to us through the Bible some of the future events through prophecy, right? But think how much more of that timeline he's revealed to his angels when they were in heaven. That's just my opinion, but when you think logically about some of this stuff, it makes sense, doesn't it? So, all right. Now, some folks are upset because they think that I'm revealing bad things about Tesla. Look, I'm presenting you the information. We know that he was a Freemason. So you have to come to terms with that. What does that mean? Now, some people believe there are good Freemasons and bad Freemasons. I don't believe that. I believe that when you get into that club, you pretty much have already sold out. And I don't believe that the story went down the way they told us in that hotel. I believe that John and Tesla were already working together. They were working together at Brookhaven. We have documentation and proof that there was early radar technology that was happening at Brookhaven during that era within 5 to 10 year period. They must have known each other because they were both prominent scientists. They must have worked together. And that early radar technology was the infancy of 5G whiz technology. And my opinion is they noticed something. They noticed that when they would turn on these machines with all this electricity, that they would resonate at levels and cause behavioral changes and shifts, and maybe even open up doorways. This is what I believe was really happening. And then they learned how to weaponize that, or they learned how to control it somehow, to use dials and frequencies. And then basically Tesla was like a sacrifice. He was already at the end of his life anyway. I think it was 86. And then it was passed on to John, and now passed on to Thump. And that's why he passed 5G whiz and beyond recently, while we are all locked down in our houses during the lockdown. Everything I just said you can verify, except for the parts that were opinion. But that's what the Holy Spirit is telling me, of how all this went down. And this same technology is somehow being used and will be used. This will become our electronic prison. When we get 5G whiz and 6G whiz, now they have real-time data flow, right? Real time. What does that mean? Well, in real time, a camera could pick up your face, run a facial analysis on you, and notify the authorities within a split second. Real time. That's why 5G was so important to them. It's the electronic fence. Let me give you another example. In real time, they could pick up your license plate running through a red light and immediately, within seconds, print out a ticket that goes directly to your house in real time. Talk about the efficiency of law enforcement. We're entering an era now where we will all be watched through 5G whiz technology, an era where you can't get away with anything. And if they don't get you on the streets of Chicago, they're going to get you from a drone. And that information will be fed into the 5G whiz fence, electronic prison, whatever you want to call it. And that will be the beginning of the end. Because then we will become debt slaves. We will become law slaves, slaves to the law, just like the Pharisees during Jesus' time. People were slaves to the law. Now it will just be an electronic slavery. And that is when Jesus will have to come back, because they will start then making unfair laws, right? You know, everyone talks about law and order. It's all fun and games until they make a law that you don't agree with. And as soon as they can enforce that law with 100% efficiency through the 5G and 6G whiz technology, that's when you'll feel the hurt. That's when you'll be like, law and order sucks, because then they can pass any law they want. They could just say everybody voted for it. And then they can enforce it with near 100% efficiency, because you don't need a police force patrolling. All you need is cameras to pick up your license plate, to pick up anything they want. They send that and they can enforce that with 100% efficiency without any waste. They could have one cop in an entire city, and that will be the beginning of the end. So, thanks, 5G Whiz and Beyond. No thanks. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the show there. Appreciate everybody coming out. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and please share this video. The only way that eyes are going to be on this video is if you guys share it, put it in your Facebook groups, do whatever you want with this video. It's going to upload to ODYSEE, just in case I have to bring it down if it got a flag somehow. It will be up on ODYSEE, and I'll try to get it up on the backup channel if that happens as well. So subscribe to all the backup channels, because you never know when this one's going to go down. And all those backup channels are either in the description or featured on the front of this page of this YouTube channel. I love each and every one of you. And I hope you guys have a great day, and take care and be safe.